everyone. Welcome to this week's Karma Cards. Wow, did we have a big energy bump in the last few days. On Monday, which I believe was the 27th of February, the KP index shot up to 7 several times that day, which means that we had a large electrical magnetic energy storm, which not only affects our communication devices like GPS and radio waves, but it can also affect the human self. So a lot of people were feeling it. And again, we kind of run the gamut of these feelings. I personally felt pretty exhausted by it. That seems to happen to me as I get really tired during these energy increases and I need to nap. Other people I know had energy bursts, and so it depends on where you at, what you're cycling through, what kind of upgrades are coming through. But just so you know, Monday was a huge energy day. So today is March 1st, which means we're starting a new month. But even more exciting, March of 2023 has some incredible astrological shifts that are happening. And the first one that's coming up is on March 7th. Now, on March 7th, we have the full moon in Virgo happening. But with that, we have the planet of Saturn moving from Aquarius, where it started in 2020, into the sign of Pisces. Now, Saturn is considered a malefic planet, mostly because it deals with like the lessons that we need to learn. So really interestingly, in 2020, obviously the world had its events, and it had to do with sort of this something happening to humanity as a whole, and it doesn't that fit, right? Well, now we're shifting into the sign of Pisces, and this has to do with a structuring or a looking at your spiritual life. So on March 7th, we start this journey with Saturn going into Pisces, learning the lessons of spirituality. It's going to be a really interesting shift in time for people. It's either going to take people on a new journey of spirituality or deepen their spirituality, or having them really look at and maybe reconsider restructuring their own spiritual life. And it's happening in conjunction with the full moon. And what's interesting is because it's moving into Pisces, which is where the sun is at right now, the full moon is in opposition to it in Virgo, and this gives it this extra energy. The Pisces Virgo axis is activated, and so Saturn is going to be a key player with this full moon that's coming up on the 7th. And what we're going to notice with it, I've already seen it happening, and perhaps you have too, but there is already a big narrative shift. And I can't help but wonder how it's connected to this Saturn changing planetary sign. So Saturn changes signs, I believe, every 2.5 to 3 years, somewhere in there. So I think it's every 2.5 years. So we've had a narrative that's been playing out since 2020, that's been going on. It got heated. It's got a lot of levels to it, a lot of things happening, and it's falling apart completely now. This whole narrative is being shut down. The truth that has been said the whole time and has been denied or fought about or really kind of excommunicated from the whole situation, it's finally coming out for everyone to see, although it's being downplayed. But basically, this narrative has run its course. It can't serve the dark timeline any longer, and they're shutting it down. But that doesn't mean it's over. Now they are shifting narratives, and you're going to notice the media sort of dropping the whole COVID narrative and moving into a new narrative that they're going to be ramping up and escalating. It's probably more about war and the world and things like that. And the message that I have from the team talks more about it today. So I'm interested to bring that in together. But other than what it does as a social engineering mechanism, that message, what's interesting to look at is, okay, how this seems to be coming about right as Saturn's making this big turn. And Saturn is, right, it talks about time and about the karma and lessons that we need to learn, and it's shifting its focus into a spiritual direction. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that correlates with this also narrative turn, right? And I want to get into that further with you with the message that's coming through from the team this week. But before I forget, I did want to mention that there is a spirit circle happening on March 7th when this major shift is happening. There's a new moon spirit circle. If you want to join it, here's the link. I will also put it down in the description below, and that will give you access to it. I will be able to share more with you about what's happening cosmically and how the planets are speaking to us and letting us know what's coming ahead, as well as doing some psychic Q&A with you. So if that sounds like something that would be fun for you or you're really interested in, check it out. Link is in the description. Okay, so getting back to the message from the team. The message from the team is about the fact that we're entering an unknown period. So again, this unknown period has to do with this narrative shift that's coming and this idea of hyping up a World War III. And what they said about it was not to go into a black and white thinking space about this. Black and white thinking is when we go all or nothing, when we're like, there's only this option or this option. They want to remind us that there is so much nuance available to us, and nothing really exists in an absolute polarity. There's always shades of gray. There's always other perspectives to see things from. And I think that the reason they bring this up is so that you don't get caught up in the storylines that are playing out. Because again, they get played out in front of us to get us to activate our conscious mind. They want to activate it. They want you to go into what they're trying to create for you to help create the scenario. And you simply don't have to do that. That's a choice. And this is not a mechanism that's only you. I mean, they don't only use media to do it. I've talked about this before, how they use film and television, books. They use all sorts of different mediums to stimulate your imagination and get you to create the scenario in your mind, to think it through and then create feelings towards that. And what's interesting is you can actually look at what they're presenting. As long as you're aware that that's what's happening, what you can do is you can look at what they're presenting from a more detached point of view, moving back into your observer self, where you are fully aware that you are a divine being, you're connected to a greater source, and that ultimately what we're in is some kind of simulation for us to create experience, to play out, to get information and see what's happening. So when you step back into that observer self, you can then witness these things without giving it emotional input. And emotional input is what gives anything a charge, right? That's when you're talking about manifesting, if you just say, I've created this is here now and I love it, but you say it without feeling, without emotional attachment, you haven't charged the manifestation. So the manifestation sort of sits there and idles. It doesn't really do anything. But if you can get yourself to emotionally invest, if you can get into what you're trying to create and be like, oh my God, it feels so good to have this blank in my life now, and I can't wait to experience more of this, then you are charging the manifestation and you are helping it to produce more particle energy, right? So I've told you before that all a manifestation is taking a wave form, a thought, and concentrating it till it becomes more compacted like matter, right? And this is how it works. When you emotionally charge anything, a manifestation, what you're watching, what you're doing is you're giving those particles the energy, the charge to move, to like create and condense their energy, to compact and solidify. That's what our emotional charge does. So just a fun hint, if you are working on trying to manifest something in your life and you're like, hey, nothing's happening, just feel into yourself. Do you feel emotionally connected to it? Is there an emotional response you're having to what you're trying to create? And if you're finding like, no, I'm kind of more in a clinical or scholarly headspace about it, I'm more thinking about it on a more theoretical level than a practical level, it's the emotional charge that you're missing. To go back to the point that my team was making, they're showing us things and they're starting up a narrative, or they're deepening or taking their narrative to the next level to get you emotionally charged, because it can help to create it. And so I find that maybe the job right now of all spiritual light workers, warriors, star seeds, however you identify as a being of the light, is to stay in that very emotionally detached place to anything that's presented to us. You can simply look at it and say, that's an interesting proposition, but I decline, or I do not consent. I do not consent to this playing out. And in doing so, you take charge away. I truly believe, when I feel into the fields, that this event that they try to present ultimately doesn't happen. The same way I felt about certain events that were connected to the COVID experience that we have. There were certain things that they threatened people with that I just felt on some level this doesn't go through. And of course it didn't. So I'm getting that same feeling again, and I wanted to share it with you. And I know I usually don't go into any kind of political spectrum with you, because I just don't feel like my job is to tell anyone how to think. I believe that everyone should have the freedom to choose. However, at the same time, I get a really strong feeling like, don't be afraid. And I have no fear, and I get weirdly calm as we move forward, because I just know that we've got power within ourselves to create. And the more you get in contact with that, and the more you stop giving that away to things that you don't even want to create, the more powerful you become. And I don't mean powerful as in I'm going to take space from people, but really you start to realize that, yes, even just one person saying I don't consent changes the entire field. And if you can recognize that, you can help stop something you don't want right now by not getting emotionally invested, even to the point of just walking away from it, saying this is a story that doesn't interest me. Now, what's interesting is our egos will tell us you can't stop looking at it. If you stop looking at it, bad things will happen. But that's because the narratives designed are speaking directly to our egos. They're speaking directly to these parts of ourselves in order to create the negative emotion that would help to generate it. So yes, you might find that if you try to walk away, if you're just like, I'm just not interested and I'm not participating, sorry, you might find that you have some weird sort of guilt, but that guilt is being generated from the ego getting the subliminal message that you really should be invested in this. And so I share with you that that's a choice, and it's a choice you can make, or you can choose not to make it. And ultimately, no matter what happens, this is in service to our spiritual selves, our spiritual relationship, our relationship to spirituality, and whatever that is for you. That's what this is ultimately in service to at a higher level. On the lower level, yeah, it's a manipulation. On the higher level, right, it doesn't matter what the event is playing out at the lower level. On a higher level, you're going to get in touch with the spiritual power that lives within you, that beautiful source energy that connects all of us. And we all have a different experience of it. And when I look at all the different ways it presents itself, I just smile because I can see the bigger picture. We're all saying the same thing. We're just talking in different details. And that's one of the other messages that comes through. It's like, don't get so black and white that there's one way to see something. That's just, it's not how the paradigm is designed, nor is it how the universe works. The universal consciousness doesn't have a singular perspective. If it did, we would all have the same perspective because we are all one with the universal source. So by the very fact that so many different perspectives can exist on one plane, and not only this plane, but on every other plane of existence that's out there, that there can be multi-perspective experience, shows us that there are multiple valid perspectives. It's like my favorite saying is there's 1,000 paths to the way home, right? And when we get caught up on what path are you on, and we're worried or concerned or looking at other people's paths and trying to correct them, here's what we can know. We're not on our path. If we're trying to get everybody else on a path, we're actually not walking the path. And so that's one of the other messages that comes through, is that there's 1,000 paths to the way home. There are going to be thousands of perspectives that are all looking at the same thing and ultimately describing the same function, just with different details. And, and it reminds me of the story of what was it? Like there was like 5 men and they're all like blindfolded and they're touching something. And one's like, I've got a rope. And the other one's like, I've got a big piece of leather. And one's like, I've got a piece of horn. And it turns out they're all touching an elephant. Just one's got the tail and one's touching a leg and one's touching like the tusk, So they're all right. They're all, they're having a different experience of the same thing. And that is something that is coming forward right now, is that we're all having an interesting, unique experience of the same thing. And we're all bringing at a different perspective. And again, my team reminds me that the name of the game here isn't trying to find the right perspective, but see how many perspectives you can identify in the lifetime. And in order to identify another perspective doesn't mean anything about giving up your own, right? You don't have to let it go. You can sit with your own point of view, but rather to open your mind to what other experiences or other ways of seeing it are available. And as we do that, we are gaining more and more of the bigger picture. We might never see the entire picture in this singular lifetime. I don't even think that's possible. And we won't even gather every perspective that's available, but we will enrich our own experience by being aware and being curious and interested in how the same thing can be seen by other people. And so I guess to tie it together, no matter what's presented to us, just know there are multiple ways to look at it. There are multiple perspectives. And if you don't like the one you're experiencing, you don't have to necessarily deny it, but you can withhold an emotional attachment to it. So you can step back and from a more detached place, observe it, question it, say, why doesn't that work for me? What about that feels off or wrong? And when I hear this other one, how come some of it works for me, but not all of it, right? So this is critical thinking. This is the questioning that we do that allows us to get a bigger picture. And again, I don't think any one person can get the whole big picture, but as you gather information from other perspectives, you'll get a larger sense of it, and it'll help you decide how you want to engage with any scenario that you deal with in your life. And with that, let's do this week's karma cards. All right, if you are new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how these work. I have 3 decks here: planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what is the message you have for us this week? And I've got 2 sets of answers. I got a set in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you play is you tune in with your beautiful intuition and feel, what is the messaging you need this week? Are you looking for action-related guidance, or are you looking to see how things resolve? And of course, you can always choose both. While you are choosing, let me tell you the timing for this reading. This reading is from March 1st through March 7th, which is that full moon Saturn into Pisces shift. And the flavor of this reading, we've got Jupiter, always a great one to get. Jupiter is very positive and it's about expansion in the sign of Scorpio, which is dealing with the greater mysteries of life, in the first house, the house of self. For those who are choosing action, your spiritual action at this time is to learn or teach the extraordinary power of prayer immediately. Wow, okay. So this goes right into that big spiritual shift, right? I told you Saturn is shifting into Pisces. This is the sign of spirituality. I've often felt that maybe Jesus was actually a Pisces. He just feels like a Pisces to me. But ultimately, it's a very spiritual sign. It represents the other side of the veil and seeing the bigger picture, and it connects directly to spirituality. So asking us to learn or teach the extraordinary power of prayer immediately, I get the feeling like this is the time, right? This is the time to put in your prayers. Remember, prayers are the asking. It's simply what you're asking for. And learn or teach this, I feel like that's just for us to, it's time to engage with it. It's time to take it in. So if you're a person who is quite good at prayer, share that talent and ability with others. If you're someone who feels uncomfortable with prayer or feels like I don't even know if I'm doing it right, lean into it. Like, try to find information that you feel works with you. But honestly, I feel like it's just that moment where you're like, hey, it's me. I want to have a conversation with you. And we also know that when we're asking for more than just ourselves, those are the prayers that are probably the loudest, or those are the priority prayers, right? They get sort of that priority flag like in an email. So when we're asking on behalf of others, those are the express prayers. Mental action at this time. Be positive about the highest and lowest aspects of the way you project yourself. This is really interesting because that goes into the whole previous conversation about polarization and all good or all bad or black and white thinking, right? We do this with ourselves frequently. A lot of times we get caught up in this, I'm a good person, or most people get caught up in I've done something wrong, therefore I'm a bad person. And many egos hold that as their perspective more than I'm this great person, right? We actually have a lot of egos that default into how bad they are. The universe, again, is asking you to let go of this harsh, stark, black and white. Rather, see yourself in a more positive light and realize that even the lowest aspects of you, or of your experience, have something valuable to teach you and show you. They're not who you are. It's not who you are. The mistakes you've made in your past are not who you are. The accomplishments you've made aren't who you are. You are something so much more powerful and precious and beautiful that our actions can't quite mirror what we truly are. And if you've come from that place that I'm so much more than I could ever express, I mean, you can feel your vibration lift. I can feel my heart feels like lighter as I say that to you. Let yourself have that. I'm so much more. I am so much more than I could ever express. The good, the bad, the weird. I'm so much more than that. And as you focus in on that, it lifts you up and you're able to see these aspects from a place of compassion, love, and understanding, rather than from a place of, I am what I do. What you do carries consequences, good or bad. What you say carries consequences, good or bad, right? But you are so much more than that. And nothing that you've ever expressed in your life can really touch on just what you are. In fact, it's something that I think we struggle to express. I think art comes close, but even that falls short because it's something that simply cannot, it can't be told, it can't be shown, it can't necessarily come through in action, but it's there behind everything. And when we are focusing in on that piece, like, what am I behind all of this? Then we start to really touch the nature of what we truly are. And that will affect how we project out into the world too. All right, physical action at this time. Grow and expand, control the situation, and do it on your own. I feel like that goes right back to how I was addressing how to deal with any narratives coming forward. As we move forward, I feel like I feel like a lot of people learned from 2020 and beyond, but the message is still a good one to remind ourselves. I don't have to react to this. In fact, the goal should be response rather than reaction. And when we respond, we're actually reserving emotional energy. We're choosing, how am I going to let this affect me? Am I going to get upset instantly? Am I going to consider how I move forward, right? So we're actually being asked to learn how to respond to things rather than react. And this is an inside job, right? This isn't something that we've got to get someone else to do it, so we do it. In fact, we don't even have to concern ourselves with whether someone else is doing it or not. So even though I share this message with you, my job is to pass on the message, and you can take it or leave it. But I'm actually not concerned about whether you choose to move into a more responsive place or a reactive place. I simply know that the message is to observe without emotional response to it, and I need to just make a choice if that's how I will move forward. And I like it. I like that choice, and that's how I'd like to move forward. It's the same for you. It's an inside job. This is the message coming through. Do with it what you will. All right, so now let's look at outcomes for the coming week with Jupiter in Scorpio in the first house of self. The spiritual outcome at this time is the granting of purification to resurrect who you are. I love it. I love it. The granting of purification to resurrect who you are. I feel like as Saturn moves into Pisces and we get this deeper spiritual growth, we're learning the lessons of spiritual growth. We're kind of resolving any karma around our connection to spirituality. And as we do so, every ego filter, I'm like trying to find the word. They're showing me something fuzzy in front of you. So I'll just say a filter. Every ego filter sort of gets dissolved. And if you've already been dissolving some ego filters, I mean, man, this coming week could offer you something very insightful in terms of your spiritual relationship to yourself. But even if you were just starting this journey, so many of those filters are getting dissolved and you're getting in closer contact to who you really are, which I think is a really exciting message to receive. Mental outcome at this time: blessings from the secrets of your desires. You know, here's where we want to put that emotional energy. Put your emotional energy in what you desire. Our desires are it's beckoning us to our destiny, right? So think about this, and to get down into your desire is important. So understand that we can have surface desires, and that's not necessarily destiny. Like, let's say your surface desire is to be like mega super wealthy, and you're like, wow, that's my destiny. Well, we got to dig down deeper to really find out what the destiny is, right? So what does super mega wealthy get for you? What do you get from that? And let's say you're thinking about it and you're like, if I was super mega wealthy, I'd feel really free or really secure. And then you know, okay, this is the true layer is about freedom and security. And what do freedom and security bring you? When I feel free and secure, I feel at peace. There it is. There's destiny. Your destiny is peace. To feel that peace, to radiate this peace. So again, blessings from the secrets of your desires. Dig in, find out, use the emotional energy that could be used towards arbitrary things or is trying to be co-opted and taken so it can be used for things. Instead, be like, I'm reserving this for something worthwhile. And something worthwhile to me is what I desire in my life. And I'm going to dig in. I'm going to think about the surface desires, because the surface desires help us get to our depth. So never knock them, right? Like, you're allowed to want what you want. So if you want a big, beautiful mansion or something like that, or you want wide open plots of land or whatever it is you want, that's great. Start there. Ask yourself, what does this get me? When I get that, I will feel what? And then you keep digging until you hit the core. And as soon as you hit the core, you've just found your destiny. The physical outcome at this time: good fortune resulting from the power of your actions. Okay, so if we're staying on track with the message here, and our action is to reserve our emotional energy and apply it towards what we desire, what we wish to create, it has a direct blessing for us. Good things come from that. So that is our action step this week, if you feel so inclined to follow the guidance coming through. Good things come from it. So I will be following this, and I will be reserving my emotional energy and applying it to the things that I desire to create or I desire to experience. And I'm going to remember, and I hope you remember, that this is how it works. That's the formula. And it's, on one hand, so simple. It's like, oh, okay, that's simple. On the other hand, we live in this day-to-day reality where we're constantly offered stimuli and things to focus on. So the real job here is to really get discerning about where you're going to focus this energy. And if you do choose to observe something that you might think this could be emotionally upsetting to me, either step back until you feel like, yeah, I can just observe it now and don't have to emotionally engage, or ask yourself, is this really going to benefit me to look at this at all? Or is it going to trigger me to some degree? And then choose to focus your energy where you think it would benefit you the most. And with that, I'm sending you so much love. Have a beautiful week, and I'll see you on the other side of Saturn and Pisces. Mwah. Hi, my name is Therese Tucker, and I want to welcome you to Mercury Pod Coaching. I created this group coaching program to help you move out of procrastination and into traction towards your big goals. I know how it feels to dream really big and then all of a sudden find yourself sitting there spinning in place, not getting anywhere closer to your goal. It can be really easy to get caught up in feeling flustered and confused and not know what action to take, and so you completely stop taking any action at all. If this sounds familiar to you, then there's a good chance that you've got some mindset blocks in the way that are preventing you from taking actions right now that can get you closer to your big dream and create real change in your life. Here's what you need. You need someone who can see those mindset blocks and help you get out of indecision, move into inspired action, and do it quickly. And that's where I come in. So what is the Mercury Coaching Pod? It is a 30-day coaching program where you will have weekly coaching calls live with me to help you implement your plans and take action now. In this group coaching program, you will also get one private session with me where we can completely deep dive into what it is you're trying to create, and I can help you create the action tasks that you're going to need to complete in 30 days to get ahead. If you're ready to jumpstart your goals and get going right now, then you are the perfect person for this pod coaching program. So if you're interested, hit the Get Access button below. And of course, I look forward to seeing you in the Mercury Pod Coaching Program. All my love. Thank you for watching. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so that you know the next time I release a new video. Until then, stay magical.